And a warm welcome back to the shop. Today we begin the 200 series of the how to build stuff. It's just some basic stuff, some basic tips and tricks, and today we're going to go over pull lines. So what you're looking at here is the inverted fuselage of a Black Horse Models F4U Corsair. So the airplane is assembled to the point already using everything that you learned in the 100 series. All of those basics apply here. Each one of these hinges was epoxied in place using the same methods, following the instructions. There's just stuff that you screw in together. The installation of the servos is literally exactly the same. There's nothing new, even though the servos are a little bit bigger, a little bit beefier. It's literally exactly the same stuff. So there's no sense in rehashing that. You're just applying it to a different subject. So we're to the point where we're doing pull lines, and for those of you who don't know, pull lines are pretty self-explanatory. You have a line that is connected here to our tail wheel, and this is I replaced this wheel. This is a Dubro wheel. So what you have is a twisted steel line, and it's basically like a fishing line, but it's made out of metal, and you create a loop. And I'll explain in different steps what this loop looks like, because this is too small to really explain it. But the idea is you have one line connected to one side of the servo and another line connected to the other side of the servo. So you pull on one side and it turns, and you pull on the other side and it turns the other way. Thus pull. In this situation, what sort of pulls things back to neutral, or at least helps anyway, is this spring. All right. So that way it should correlate with the rudder. So let me flip this fuselage over and we'll get into what's on the inside. All right, so looking at the fuselage upright, we can now go into the servo bay. We have a lot of plywood that's got this carbon fiber reinforced plate. So here we have an elevator servo and another elevator servo. There's one for each elevator. And we have the rudder servo. The rudder is already connected, as you can see, all the way down there. All right. So what we're going to do is just take a look at these pull lines. As you can see, they come through these guide tubes, and we have to connect them to the servo arm. Okay, the way we do that is we've got a series of hardware here. Okay, number one, you're going to want your drill, because you need a drill that is going to accept the clevis. So normally these holes in the servo arms are a little bit small for these clevis connectors, especially these more beefy Dubro ones that I generally prefer, mostly because of this quick release. It's just easier for adjusting. Every once in a while you can have like really hot days where moisture, at least in my climate, I mean, it's hard to explain how humid it is in the Washington DC area, but the heat and the humidity can cause the airframe to expand and contract, and that makes the pull lines, you may have to tighten them or loosen them. Okay, so you have this is some stuff that I have on hand. This is just general wire. It's like nylon coated. You can use like jewelry beading line. Oh, hi Toto. Hi buddy. Okay, are you coming to help? No? You going to poop? Okay, we're not going to watch that. So with this, this is some of the hardware that came with the airplane. You have some sort of device that has a hole in the side. Okay, woo, there we go. Now you can see it. So we're going to lace the the wire through this and create a loop. And I'm going to explain that loop. But the thing you have to remember after that is how you're going to affix it. You don't tie knots because knots come loose. What you do is you use a crimp. So crimps, the ones that are provided with this kit are like this, and they're kind of long, but plenty sufficient for what we're going to do. The crimps that I've used in the past, and I've even doubled up on these, again, these little jewelry crimps. Again, you can pick this stuff up at the craft store for pretty cheap. It's not that expensive stuff. If you get stuff from the hobby store, it's going to be a little bit more, but again, not terrible. Just the difficult part is that people get intimidated about like how loose or tight to make things. So I'm going to go over what I do, and hopefully it'll help you guys. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to get things set up and explain a little bit more how I got to that point. All right? All right, we are back. So I decided to change out the hardware because I realized that my jam nut going up against plastic, a plastic clevis, was not necessarily a good idea. So I swapped out for these other ones that I had on hand, saved from another model, and I just used some brand new clevises. But this is what you're looking at. It's essentially the same design, only it's metal on this end instead of plastic. So having an all metal design gives it just better longevity, in my opinion. So just something to note that comes with the Black Horse kit if you get it. But the principle of doing the pull line is the same. So really what you're doing is you're starting with the crimp. See if I can get this stuff to focus better. You're starting with the crimp on the line, and then you thread the line through the clevis end, okay, your threaded end here, and then you loop it back around through the crimp. All right, so that's the start of it. That's the basic start. And you don't necessarily have to worry just yet about length. Just keep everything nice and round. Try not to get any kinks or bends in the wire. And then next, what you're going to do is you're going to take the end here that's dangling out, and you're going to loop it back around and then pass it through the crimp again. All right, so then from this part on, this is where things get a little bit tricky. So let me show you what I mean here. So you're gonna assemble this with some slack. All right, so the ideal situation here is you have slack, and then you're going to tighten this. So what I've done is, if you look inside, the threaded end is right up to the very top of the clevis point. Okay, this, for those who don't know, this piece of fuel tubing that comes with the clevises, it gets slid up over top of the clevis when it's on the servo horn and holds it in position, all right? So that's prepped. So once we get the crimp done, the idea is to get everything as taut as possible, and then do the crimping, and then you take up the slack with this. We would loosen the set screw, which is here. You loosen the set screw, and then you tighten this, and then you set the set screw when everything is right. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get everything set and ready just before I crimp, and then we'll come back. So what you're going to do, it's difficult to visualize. I understand this if you're not actually doing it, but if you do this, walk through these next steps. So you're going to be pulling on the end that comes through your rod here, and you're going to be pulling that until this line is roughly tight. Okay, notice how things are still pretty loose. All right, so we're not super tight just yet. So you're going to pull that, and you're going to have a whole bunch of slack here, and then you're going to pull on the aft side of your loop to pull that slack through so that that's nice and tight. Then your loop is going to be huge. Then you pull the end through to make your loop smaller. Okay? It's a procedure. It's a little finicky. You have to be patient. Okay? But once you get to this point, This is when you start making small adjustments, okay? You're gonna use like needle nose pliers, use hemostat maybe if you've got one of those, and then you're gonna be making small adjustments to get things tighter and tighter and tighter, following that same procedure I just described until things are fairly tight, and you're gonna be checking your wheel alignment to make sure that it's straight right down the fuselage. So I am going to focus on that, and I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like right before I crimp. Like the next step will be to do the crimp. All right, get my grubby little hand in here. All right, so we're pretty taut and we're about the same. It's a little bit looser on this side, but that's okay. As you can see, it's a little mangled there, so can't really complain too much. It's good enough. We have enough threads in there to pick up the slack and do what we need to do. So the next step is really to just take your needle nose pliers, put it in the crimp, and then squeeze real tight. I'm not going to try to do that while holding the camera, so pardon me if I come back. All right, one sec. All right, so as you can see, we've got a nice flat crimp and a nice flat crimp. And the only thing left really to do is to snip off the ends. Now, I snip off the ends like just a centimeter or so. If I can get this to focus right. No, that's my hand. Well, there you go. See if we can see. There's a centimeter or so. All right, so let me get these trimmed up and get them tightened up. So again, you back off the set screw and then you twist to tighten the pull lines, and then you set the set screw and you're done. So let me do that and I'll show you what the end result looks like. All right, so here's the final product. As you can see, because this one was still a little bit looser, it's a little bit tighter on there, which is fine. We've got plenty of threads for us to loosen more and to tighten, and that's really what we're after. So as the airplane expands, contracts, as you go through dynamic flight situations, things will change. And certainly once we get to the field and we do some taxi testing, we may find that it tracks a little different, and we'll adjust from there. That's what the set screws are for. That's why you don't put Loctite on them. You don't try to over torque them. You just get them tight, all right? And part of your annual check on an airplane as you get to a complex model that has pull lines, you really should check this on an annual basis to make sure that it's tight and that it's not going to slip. The last thing you want is to have a wheel that's going to turn and then the airplane as it lands spins into a crowd of people. Bad day. Bad day. So another quick tip is as I was tightening these, I did put on my servo tester, and as we look at how well we turn, we've got a good amount of angle here for maneuvering the airplane. So the idea here is so let's set to one side. So that's at full deflection. So there's going to be flex here. There's going to be slack. That's okay. So as you encounter steering, it's going to be pulling on this cable. And then if we go in the opposite direction, the same thing applies. Now this one is tight, and if we hit a bump or anything, it's going to be pulling on that cable. All right, that is how pull works. You pull and then you pull. It's really not a big mystery. It's just getting the clevises set right before you crimp down your crimps. I've seen far too many people get really frustrated with this, and that is the tip that I have. It's what I found works for me. It's not anything that really I picked up from anybody. Is just trial and error. So I thought I'd pass that along to you guys. So I'm going to keep on assembling this, and if I come across any other fun things, before I go, if you're doing this on landing gear, okay, so notice how I did this with the tail gear down because as the tail gear goes up, it's going to put slack on those lines. Okay, so I should note that. Otherwise, you'd have a really bad day and you'd have to redo it all over again. So thank you for watching all the way to the end. All right, so keep building your flying works of art, guys, and have a great day. I'll talk to you later.